At the heart of downtown Rockford, one 45-year-old building enters its second phase of renovations. Reporter Alyssa Kelly attended a walkthrough event at the BMO Center, learning the importance of maintaining the building's quality of life.
Is going to be redirected away from the building.
Leaders give a glimpse into a more than $4 million renovation project underway at a downtown landmark.
I was considered BMO the anchor of the downtown entertainment district.
For decades, community members flocked to the BMO Center to watch sporting events and musical acts, adding to the quality of life in the heart of the Forest City. Project and city leaders say it's important to maintain the venue and keep it attractive.
Well, it actually goes back to 2018 when we started seeing a ton of cracks all over the outside of the building, water coming down, creating pools of water, which then turns into ice where we have people walking. So the structural integrity of the building was showing some repair work that needed to be done.
Leaders at the BMO Center hired architects with Wiz Janney and Elsner Associates to plan the work. Recently, they completed phase 1 of the project, which identified and addressed repairs along Main Street and Chestnut Street.
We're excited to start the second phase of the project, and we'll be completing all the work on Elm Street.
The second phase of the project mainly focuses on the exterior of the building on Elm Street, fixing issues like fan coil units, rotting doors, and cracks in the structure, as well as the concourse.
Yeah, it's very much needed.
A contract was awarded to Boley and Andrews for the construction on Elm Street, and the state contributed not only to the Elm Street work, but to the project as a whole, with funds secured by Senator Steve Stottlemyre.
BMO has a long history here, so I'm more than happy to make sure the state is involved in that commitment to make sure people can continue to come here and enjoy this building.
We are an anchor here in downtown, and many of the businesses downtown depend on our success. So I want them to see that people care about this building and that we're going to be around for a long time.
Reporting in Rockford, I'm Alyssa Kelly.
The renovations are set to kick off at the beginning of August, and officials say they expect to have the work completed by mid-December. Officials add the renovations are not expected to affect the customer experience.